Ready we are.
Good afternoon, distinguished ladies and gentlemen of the press. I'd like to welcome you to yet another edition of our weekly press briefings here at the Executive Mansion on today's day. You following this broadcast on radio, in the counties, and other platforms, whether it's social media, we'd like to welcome you officially to our regular Executive Mansion press briefings. As always, the president has had a very busy week, all in the interest of working for the Liberian people as he was so duly elected for. And as you know, the week he's had several meetings, meeting partners and business leaders and other counterparts. But notable among the meetings and his actions for the week, you all can recall during the course of the week, His Excellency did commend the Civil Service Agency for their steadfast role in implementing the mandate of blocking civil servants, or may I say presidential appointees who were yet to declare their assets as he won, and upon their suspension, the civil service went ahead and did the blockage of their salaries. Those salaries culminated into an amount that was directed to the one child, one chair policy, the presidential initiative, to enable young children in school, both primary and secondary schools, to have access to sitting. That is, to put chairs in the classrooms. That initiative is well on course, and the extra account is mandated to be open by the Ministry of Finance, Development, Planning, and to make sure that that process goes on. Following that, the president did attend and spoke at the 73rd annual meeting of the West African Examinations Council, including Nigeria, the Gambia, Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Ghana. That meeting also saw the awarding of educators, people who have contributed immensely to the education sector of West Africa, notably a Liberian woman, as we growing up all remember her contribution and still is contributing to the education sector of Liberia. Madam Hawa Kochi was recognized and honored for her steadfast leadership and contribution. And His Excellency, the President, was also excited to be able to present the certificate of honor to her. And he also spoke to the need for concerted efforts to the educational system, inclusive of ensuring that WAEC and other bodies that are relating to education have an inclusive policy or inclusive education, to include persons with disability, access to education, but also to ensure that education is made open, and on WAEC, that testing are credible, the credibility of the testing of the knowledge of the young people also be strengthened. The week have been busy, and the president have also made a number of appointments. And prior to the appointments, he also had a meeting with a number of nurses. In fact, that meeting was held yesterday here at the Executive Mansion in the Tea House, where the nurses, majority of whom were Americans or are Americans, and they've been here and they will train and work with Liberian nurses to support them. In fact, a total number of 200 plus nurses are expected to be trained in the provision of some kit and support that sector. And this initiative is an initiative of President Boakai's diaspora office. And as you know, part of the annual message earlier this year, the president talked about his engagement with the diaspora And also there's an office that the president did establish for diaspora affairs and relations. There will be, and the planning preparation is currently ongoing, there will be an engagement sometimes this year in the United States where diaspora Liberians will converge and really talk about issues relating to the community and how diaspora Liberians can be very active, connecting Liberia to trade, to commerce, to business, to education, to health, to support, and to really make sure that that connection and that openness is to also recognize the contributions that diaspora Liberians are making, not only in the United States or from the United States, but in the entire world. They're Liberians in Asia, in parts of Africa, in Europe, and all over the world, even in the Middle Eastern part of the world. The president's plan is to make sure that Liberians all over the world can contribute to the growth and development of our country. With that being said, the president have made a number of appointments in government. The president has appointed Honorable Henry B. Fambule as Ambassador Extraordinary Plenipotentiary to the Arab Republic of Egypt, and that appointment requires Senate confirmation. The president also have appointed Mr. Oscar F. Mulba as Assistant Minister for Public Affairs at the Ministry of National Defense. He also needs Senate confirmation. The president have set up the board of directors for the Food Authority of Liberia. Members of the board include Ms. Elizabeth T.W. Omoko, Ms. Nene Kamara Chio, Ms. Jackie Kore, Ms. Princess M. Jekin, and the Transport Union of Liberia is on the board, as well as the Director General of the Food Authority. Additionally, the president has also appointed Ms. Priscilla Cheru as the Director General of the Food Authority, Ms. Georgia Gray as the Director General, as the Deputy Director General for Administration of the same institution, the Food Authority, as well as the Deputy Director General for Technical Services for the Food Authority. These appointments on the Food Authority, they take immediate effect because the Food Authority is an authority that doesn't need or does not go through confirmation by the Liberian Senate, unless the earlier announcement or appointments that I mentioned. Having said that, I'd like to inform the public that early this morning, His Excellency President Joseph Fima Boakai has made a brief visit to Accra, Ghana on a private mission. While the president is away, the Minister of State for Presidential Affairs, Honorable Sylvester Graceby, will chair the cabinet in consultation with the Vice President, Honorable Jeremiah Kwankun, and in consultation with the President via telephone. His Excellency will return to the country on Sunday. Thank you all so much, and I look forward to taking your questions and comments should you have. Good afternoon. Please state your name, the institution, and your question.
Thank you. My name is Anthony Tefa from the Atlantic Broadcasting Corporation. Two questions. The first question is, how much was raised from the suspended official salary? The next question, the president appointed the head of LEC with immediate effect of receipt. The act creating the LEC called for confirmation. The Senate has commented on that. What can you say?
Yes, thank you. I'm Julius Compton from Fortune TV. I would like to know specifically how many US-based nurses are in the country, and two, what would be the specific areas that they will be. Lastly, from my end, on yesterday, the Monrovia Consolidated School System Teachers Association, passing over 24 public schools in Monrovia have announced a major go-slow action expected to affect thousands of students as they are preparing gradually for the WASSCE. President, you know on this, if so,
Thank you, Press Secretary. My name is Joseph Daniels. I report for OKFM. One, I would like to know, recently the President made a statement calling on ministries and agencies to tidy up their facilities. They mentioned of the ministerial complex. That was during the first cabinet meeting for 1 month now, and that building is still the same. What further action will the president take? Or is it up to the institutions to decide whether to listen to what the president said or not? And secondly, you spoke about the president going on a private visit. Can you elaborate more? Is it weekend vacation or medical purpose? What sort of private visit is the president going for?
Thank you. Thank you. Any further question? Thank you. On the issue of the last question from Joseph, I said the president went on a private visit, and I mean, if what is private is a private visit, but I can say it's not a medical visit or a leisure visit, but it's a private visit, and let's keep it, that at that. On the question of tidiness of the offices, the ministerial complex hosts a number of ministries and agencies. And when the president did mention that they need to work on that, they have indicated that they will do their best to ensure that that happens. But of course, because the president is on the management of the entire facility, will take action as the president has mandated. On the issue of MCSS and planning go slow, the president is here to receive an update on this particular information, but this is something that we'll follow up on and follow up with and inform the Minister of State to further inform the president, but also the Ministry of Education, particularly the Minister of Education, will brief the president as to what's happening and what are the plans or mitigating circumstances to ensure that that happens. On the question of the nurses that are here, there are about 25 of them, 25 nurses. They're in fact not just nurses, but they're both nurses and medical professionals. They are here from different states, from the United States of America, and they intend to do a number of trainings, pretty much to assess the different facilities that they will be visiting, meet with the medical teams there, and see what contribution they can make, but more so in provision of medical supplies, but more so with support to the nurses, our own Liberian nurses in those different facilities. And they here, in fact, their presence here it's not just going to be a one time. They intend to also create, that networking opportunities that they're always available, whether maybe some of them may be on some breaks and they want to come back and create that open avenue for everyone, especially those communities they will be working in. And may I add that it is not just going to be in Monrovia or Montserrado County. They're going across the country. And in fact, they've had their first training in Bangabon County. And they were able to connect with over 100 nurses and midwives on that part of the country as well. So the question on the LEC's appointment, if you read the announcement that the president made or that we put out based on the president's directive, all appointments that are required confirmation by the Liberian Senate, the expectation that they will go through the process. If the appointment does not require confirmation hearing by the Liberian Senate, because I know what I do know with the LEC process, there was a committee set up to vet qualified candidates for the position, and those qualified candidates were shortlisted, and the president did review the reports from the team that were doing the process, and then a selection was made. And the announcement, as we put it out, all appointments that are supposed to go for confirmation here. In fact, the announcements are pretty straightforward. President Boakai have appointed this amount or number of officials of government, one person, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and where applicable, the appointees have to go for Senate confirmation. So if the laws of the institution states clearly that they have to go for a confirmation hearing by the Liberian Senate, the expectation is that that process will naturally follow through. On the issue of how much was raised, was that your question? How much was raised? What was, in fact, we did put out a note on that. I'm just going quickly to my notes. It was over 90,000 that was withheld from the salaries of staff and, appointed government officials who refused to declare their assets, even when the president gave a grace period. The actual amount is $90,808.56. And that is the first portion that have been realized. In fact, within the same information that we put out to all of you is that the mandate also includes the SOEs, the state-owned enterprises, because, they're institutions that are under the state-owned enterprises, to also follow through those officials who have not declared their assets. Recommendations be made, and their salaries as well be withheld and forwarded to this particular escrow account that will be created, or I'm sure has been created, to ensure that this one child, one chair initiative is really followed through. Because if you go to some of our classrooms, sadly, even not far from Monrovia, Montserrat County, you'll see kids still don't have access to chairs to sit down. Some have to bring their chairs from their homes. And this initiative will really help to ease that, so that children, especially in both public and private schools, are able to have access to quality education. If you don't have to worry about your chair, you already have a chair, and this is an initiative that the president is really concerned and keen about. Yes, we'll take another round of questions if you have.
Thank you, Secretary. We've seen this issue of USAID withdrawing fundings, and a huge part of the arrest agenda for inclusive development depends on the issue of donor funding. Has the government been able to make adjustment to where donor funding was expected to go? We know USAID was spending a huge sum of money in Liberia annually, which also so based on recent meetings that
So good afternoon again. My name is Regan Debbie, and I report for the Liberian News Agency. So I'm more concerned about, since we are the people's deputy, I'm concerned about the issue of bread and water issue in our country, where we go in our communities, in our rural counties, we see bringing about the bread and water issue, price expensive, things. Are there plans for this government to ensure that these things are less for less fortunate people, those especially those?
Thank you very much. On the question of USAID, I'm sure it was last week that we really delved into, USAID, and even the week prior, to really talk to all of you about where the government is as to the funding possibilities, even with the redundancy of some Liberians who were working for these institutions or for these projects, because as you know, USAID funds a number of different projects in education, in health, in agriculture. And to your question, there has been a number of different engagements with the economic management team. In fact, even personally, I have also engaged senior members of the economic management team to really follow up on where we are, what are the processes, what's happening, and how we can ensure that there are adjustments. Yes, you may be correct that USAID funds a lot of initiatives. And then, yes, the AAID, upon its completion, the conversation was that almost 80% or so was reliant or dependent on donor funding. However, the donor funding component wasn't necessarily or primarily focused on USAID. So right now, the conversation within the economic community of our country is to reach out to other players and other possible partners, looking beyond just our traditional partners, to also create new alliances, to create new partnership with other institutions, whether in the Far East, of Asia, other partners, even other financial institutions, but more than just aid. In fact, the conversation now is shifting beyond aid to look internally, to really look at domestic revenue generation, because there are lots of other possibilities. And there are things that the country needs to do to create that doing business in Liberia, the ease of doing business in Liberia, vibrant, so that partners and other people will want to do business in Liberia. But also that instead of our reliance on aid, in addition to looking at our local and national resource mobilization, but to also look at for trade, trading with partners, trading within the continent, within Africa, within other parts, even our commodities, to ensure that we have commodities or produce that we can structure or make in a way that they're acceptable, they follow all the necessary standards, and that they're able to go on the world market and they'll be able to, create that. Besides just the produce and other things, we also have sectors. The agriculture sector is a huge sector in our country. Every part of the country you go to, you see vast land. You see possibilities of investing in that area. So moving from the subsistence or subsistent farming right now that we do, majority of Liberians are involved into subsistent farming, to a more mechanized and at a higher skill level. So now the conversation, the president in fact has been meeting, even just yesterday, he had a meeting with a partner who's interested in submitting or creating that or supporting the sector, but more so also looking at a commercial bank or a bank, an agricultural bank that's able to support farmers and are able to contribute to that sector. So the more the president is looking, he's talked a lot about refocusing our attention not on aid but trade. Earlier last week talked to you about his meeting with the World Trade Organization, the head of World Trade Organization, when he went to Addis and engaging other partners. These are all conversations that are happening to focus our attention on doing business in Liberia and generating local resources. And also, even from the governance standpoint, to cut down some you may put it, some unnecessary spendings, re-energizing or retooling other components. So maybe refocusing the budget. Even the conversation now within the economic management team is to see those critical areas that the USAID fund reduction or cutting of it, that are critical, that some plans, some readjustment or adjustment needs to be made so that there's support, we found a support to those sectors so that they do not, have major impact. On the question of the bread and butter issue, a number of times when we who are, in your word, the deputy to the people, it's important to sometimes provide factual information to what's happening in the country. We have seen a number of initiatives and activities of the government to reduce pricing. Particularly, we did mention even last week as to the cost of petroleum and petroleum products. We do know gasoline particularly contributes to a lot of things, transportation. So if you're taking your goods from one point to another and you pay high price, you will naturally add on to that. But now that the gasoline pricing has reduced and is further plans for further reduction, it's important that, and there are also a lot of work. So there are a number of things that impact pricing besides just transportation. There are also the fluctuation of currency, the resources, sometimes on the exchange rate. In a conversation with a key player yesterday, also we did talk about this, about the need for stabilization. So the rice price, there have not been any major increment. You remember, or you could recall, since this government took the mantle of authority, there was this whole issue that the rice price was going to go up by a certain amount. And the president did intervene. He held a meeting with the importers, and that engagement, he, in fact, further went to set up a rice committee. And that rice committee is still working to ensure production. And I just talked about the agriculture sector, the Ministry of Agriculture headed by the minister working assiduously to ensure that we have investment in the rice production sector so that we do not 100% rely on importation of rice, but also that we're able to grow our own rice and eat them. The president is committed to the people. And if you go down, because sometimes there are a number of things that impact livelihood, what's happening, but more so the possibility of seeing how calm the country is, how the movement of the people, that peaceful it is. In fact, yes, despite all the challenges, but right now when you go in the street at nighttime, you have the police in most areas. They have their police vehicles, packed places where you're able to, talk to a police officer. Yes, there will be challenges. There will be, other things that people will express their dissatisfaction. There will be threats here and there because as you will expect, even, right now with the ban on motorcyclists going certain areas, you will hear those things because, but there are plans in mitigating those, especially on the transportation part, on the ban, because the president also do believe that the transportation issue is a serious issue. He also believes that the motorcyclists are contributing to the families, to transportation, taking people from one point to the other, that they need to be able to take care of themselves. Some of them are even using that means to educate themselves, however, when it comes to just certain areas, in most places, even in West Africa, there are no-go zone places that you're not allowed to pass. Not only motorcyclists, but also even vehicles. There are certain vehicles can pass certain areas based on their tonnage, their weight, and all of that. So, again, with the issue of the bread and butter issue, they cut across many things, but we can say that things are moving gradually, and the president is committed to ensuring that he does his best to contributing to fixing the road, fixing the transportation issue, fixing the rice issue, fixing the education issue, but most importantly, fixing the job issue, because once you can put people to work, once you have work, and in fact, now that, the youth initiative that's ongoing, young people who are working in the other that were recruited very recently, over almost 1,000 of them. They have temporary jobs that can put food on the tables, So the president is really committed to ensuring that the country is stabilized, that the country moves on, that we all get to a country that is better than how he met it. If there are no further questions, I'd like to say thank you all so much, and you all have a wonderful afternoon. Good afternoon.
So thank you for following. That was the voice of the Presidential Press Secretary, Anthony Kula Fafana addressing our regular press briefing for today. So wherever you're following us, thank you. And till we'll catch you again, I'm Vani Kumara. Have a blessed day.